you. Okay, everybody, so we're gonna do a home inspection today. I'm gonna go through a home inspection. So this actually was done 2 weeks ago on a sale in Vancouver. So, but the inspection report's very similar to what you guys will see when you do a home inspection. There's no differences in this home inspection than another, except for the format in which the inspector does it and the inspector who did it. But between states, there's no difference in what we're looking at. So question was nonprofit home inspections. That's the name of the company. I'm assuming they're a nonprofit. I used them in a sale last year, and my clients brought them in, and I thought it was a pretty decent inspection report. I thought they did a pretty good job. I like the layout of the report. I thought the inspector did a good job, and I like the fact that they could do the radon inspection, the sewer scope, the general home inspection. So they're all able to do all that stuff. And they also do they have a FLIR camera, which is like a heat imaging camera, so which will expose like leaks or moisture intrusion because of the temperature difference between what the wall would be where it's dry and what it would be where it's wet. And so I like that too. So that's why I use them. They don't have any other experience with them otherwise. So this particular house.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just go through it real fast.
Oops.
So this particular house is in Vancouver. It was like about 2,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 2 levels on a pretty big lot. And we're starting here with the roof. Okay, so there's minor cosmetic damage to the lower front gutter. Not a big deal necessarily. Cosmetic things probably don't care about. One or more downspouts discharge roof drainage next to the foundation. This condition can affect the ability of the soil to support the weight of the structure above. It can cause damage related to soil function movement. Downspout extension should be installed. So trying to get water away from the house is always a big issue. Because it's so wet here. It's not just about the softening of the soil on the foundation, but it's also about water getting back into and under the house where it can cause moisture to evaporate up through the house and can cause mold as time goes on. So that's an issue. See, I have the little kick out drains here. That's what they're talking about. See a little kick out drain there. There's a drawing. These are nice when you have a home inspector that has like kind of drawings so you can get an understanding of how it was built. If you don't have any kind of construction background, all this stuff can be a little overwhelming. So having an inspector that can kind of draw things out so you can make sense on how the system operates will be really helpful to you. In one, writing your addendum, and 2, explaining to your clients how the whole thing works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is an interesting roof, actually. I think this is a 30-year architectural comp. But it's not one you don't normally see that. And what was super weird about this one was that it was original to the house, which was built in the early 90s. So it's probably 30 years old or almost 30 years old. The homeowners used a product that I've never heard of before called Roof Max, ROFFMAXX, which was like a sealant that they put over the top of the shingles to extend the life of it. It came with a warranty. My client was a roofer, and he thought that warranty and that product was not valuable at all. We'll get to that later.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, it seemed like a kind of a sham to me too. Again, great picture here. So you see these little valleys. These little valleys can cause issues if they don't have a good spot for drainage. There's a lot of water runs through here. So the water from here, water from here, the water from there, will all collect into that spot and then needs to go somewhere. So those are always trouble areas. The vents, these vents. So this one is probably for a furnace. That is probably for a like a bathroom toilet or a sink. So there's vents that go all the way up through for all that stuff because you can't just have those gases need to escape somewhere. They don't want to just sit in the sewer lines so they escape into the house. So we have vents for that. This is corrosion right there around one of the vents. It's really common to see. The height of the vent for a fire hazard is fine. More photos of the vents. Rust from it being old. Here's one of those FLIR pictures I was telling you about. That's cool. If you guys have any questions along the way here?
What's that?
This one?
Yeah.
So that's a FLIR camera. So it's actually It's an image of heat. So the cooler, yellow is the cooler, pink is actually in this case, yellow
No,
is,
yellow's hot.
yellow's hot, purple's cool. So that was a wall into a crawl space, I believe.
Yeah, the
So-
cooler.
So this isn't insulated, so it's warmer because it's hot. In the winter, it's probably cooler. And then the other temperature. So it's cool. It shows differences in temperature, so you can see where heat may be escaping or be coming in this case, or if something was wet, because it would be a different temperature than the rest.
I like that they show you here what to do.
Yeah.
To fix it.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do they only do Vancouver?
No, I think they do stuff
They're in
down here too. Yeah,
They're in
they're
Oregon?
too. And I'm sure they're nonprofits, but I mean,
It's a sliding scale for income housing.
is it really? Is that it?
Yeah, pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's see here.
Exciting. Caulking, maintenance,
Okay, yep.
right?
So
And
this house
why?
had LP siding. Was super rare to find a house that has LP siding. It was a product that was really popular in the late 80s and early 90s. It was like one of the, hardy plank is the siding that we're all, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's a good product. It can get a little brittle in places, but it's a really good product that lasts a long time when it's installed correctly. It's like kind of the choice product to go to if you're doing like a lap siding, like what that was called. LP was like the first generation that kind of led the way on that. The problem was that it called for 2 millimeters of paint on it, which is actually a lot of paint. And no one paints, and you have to paint with a brush to get that, or you just be spraying it forever. And so the problem was it never really got painted right, or the bottom edges of it didn't get painted. And what would happen is it was a paper product, so it had a lot of paper in it, and so it would start to separate and warp over time. And it was a huge class action lawsuit. Like Murray Hill, almost every home up there had LP siding on it, and people were getting $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for that, depending on how much siding they had on the property, on the house to get redone. And the problem was a lot of people just pocketed that money and went to buy it. So then they go to sell the house. So like, wait, the siding looks like, have you ever seen wet paper where it starts to crinkly and stuff? Like this paper gets all wet. Like if you look up at LP siding, you could see like it starts to separate and look funny like that. It gets really wavy or it starts crumbling apart. I mean, it's really not a great product. This one, on the other hand, this actually was painted really, really well. Like you can see like right here, it's not great. And it was starting to show signs of separating. But all in all, it was in good shape. And paint is siding's best friend.
Mhm.
Are we supposed to leave a listing? I know it asks what kind of siding is on the house.
Mhm.
Is that required?
I think it probably is. I think it's probably required because of LP.
Right.
Yeah.
And EAFs, which is the-
Know if that's what it is or not, if there wasn't like a prior sale.
right. So I can spot LP siding by the way it looks. Hopefully we'll have someone come in and show you.
Yeah.
If you look at the knot, if you look at the fake knot, you can actually see LP written in it. And you'll know that's how it is.
Fake knots in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make it look like.
They might make it look like wood. Same with the hardy plank, they want to make it
And
look
it's a
like wood.
pattern that repeats.
Yeah, it's a pattern repeats. And once you see it, you'll be able to identify it. It's really distinctive. This always happens here. So you have so the post is into the ground and stuff is growing around it over time. Like you've got debris that comes up against it. Maybe originally it was on a cement pier or something. And so there wasn't earth to wood contact. But when earth and wood comes in contact like that, it starts rotting. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And okay, wait, this is a great pop shot here.
Yeah,
So this
right
is the
there.
underside of the siding. See how it started to separate right there? You guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's telltale LP siding issue right there. This is towards the end of its life. It's like I said, it was in really pretty good shape. And there was very few spots like this.
Part of it is the way the siding is, it doesn't, the water just goes like this and under it. It wasn't built to where the water would drip off of it.
Mhm.
And so that's a big issue with it going under. And if it's not painted properly, it definitely goes up and under.
And like somebody, this inspector I used to always use, and he would always say, and painters have bad knees, so they never get the lower level, which is like a lot of splash back up too. So if it's rain, especially here, when it rains hard, you get a lot of splash back up. And then that just is attacking the bottom of the siding. And if it was never painted, it's just getting wrecked.
Sorry, that lead because Louisiana Pacific or
Yeah.
Yeah. LP siding, and then he's got on here Georgia Pacific hardboard, Boise Cascade hardboard, and Masonite hardboard.
So those were-
lawsuits.
Yeah, there's a product called Omniboard that had issues too, and it has a very distinctive pattern to it.
We're gonna try to get an inspector in here with samples of sidings for you guys.
EIFS, which was like a synthetic stucco. And the idea behind that was that there was a drainage system behind the stucco. It was great, like in the Southwest, like in Arizona, I think they probably still use it today. But here, it was really problematic. They would, any place there was like a flat spot, so like if you had like a synthetic edge, like molding to go around a window or something, like a little trim piece to go around molding, it was flat. Water would sit on it, roll back into the window, rot out everything underneath. The drainage system didn't work properly. It was just a mess here. And even stucco siding to some degrees here can have a lot of issues with it. So when you see stucco, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it could be, when you're showing property, keep an eye out for that sort of
And
thing.
when was that fake stucco used?
Early 90s and maybe into 2000. There's a contractor here, his name's Sean Gores, who's Gores Construction. He made a career out of doing inspections on those. And what they do is they drill a hole in a spot and they are able to probe and see if water's in it and they fix it. It's huge, like hundreds of thousands of dollars for pieces. Because there can be so much rock behind it. LP, usually isn't that, the LP failure is a little bit different than that. You usually gets caught beforehand because it looks so bad. Like when LP starts failing, it looks really, really bad. But the ethos, you may not even know it's failing because it's just kind of looks. Yeah, it's high. Yeah.
When did you say LP siding was started?
Like late 80s, early 90s, and there's several generations of it. So this might even been a second generation of it because the age of the house is 92. So I'm thinking maybe it was the second generation of it. It got better, but it was never great. They don't make it anymore. Like the class action lawsuit was huge. I mean, it was like, I think it might have been one at the time, and it may still be like one of the largest class action lawsuits of all time. It's huge.
So if somebody got the money, didn't replace it.
Too much.
If they didn't, it's too late, so.
And they don't get the whole thing, right? They got like 60% of the cost or something.
Right, it's buying a house.
So that's where if you have your seller, you're telling them you need to replace it, right? You're probably gonna need to replace it, because most buyers won't.
I mean, in this market, we took it.
Sell it,
Yeah,
yeah.
good time to dump a house. This is a great time to sell a house with loss, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Did you wanna go over this at all?
What do we got here?
Kind of see it, it's the siding.
Yeah, again, you can see how notice how it's lower to the ground. So more even like, if you think about the amount of water that hits the bottom, right? So the top one gets the less amount of water, and as it goes down, more water hits it as it goes down, so. And then you get the splash back too.
Seal around the holes.
Yep. So what's cool about hardy plank, and they changed this around 2008. It used to be that, because these are long pieces of siding that go together, they actually used to have to caulk them. So if you see a home that's older, that has hardy plank siding, you'll see it need a caulk there. And then almost always, it seems like always, when I have a home inspection on one of these older hardy plank homes, then it'll say re-caulk the siding because the caulking always fails because it's brittle and it gets dried out and starts to crack over time. But like I think in 2008, they changed their application to where they just put a piece of flashing behind the siding, so the edges butt together like this. They're designed to have like a 1/4 inch space between them, and then there's a piece of metal flashing that goes behind it to keep the water from working up against the side. It's much better application and easier to deal with. It looks better.
That's a great caulking job.
Yeah. So
This
this,
quality.
yeah. So this house had a tool shed that was attached to it. So it was built, there's no access to it from inside the house. It was just built alongside the house. And this is just the garbage that they have on the side of it. It's terrible.
Nice, something trying to get in.
Yeah.
Would you be misrepresenting that house to the client though, if you said it's attached?
I mean, it's attached, but
Okay.
it's not attached. I mean, he said the inspector didn't call it attached because there was no access to it from inside. I think he was just mincing words at that point.
Yeah. There's that.
There's an example of like where it starts to separate the caulking fails
You
over
can
time.
see it
but
like
separate.
right here, right here. You can see that where the
Mhm.
mouse is.
So personally, I don't think that's a huge issue, but if it's wet and windy, then the wind can push water back into that crack and then up and in. But it's all laid on top of each other, right? So it's not like that's exposed to the inside of the house. And there's also paper behind it. I think there's supposed to be paper behind it.
Yeah,
The paper creates quite a shield. So it's like it's called Tri-Bit, I believe is the name of the paper that goes in between it. Is that right?
I think so.
And it's,
There's different ones.
and it wraps, they wrap the whole house on it and they put the siding on top of it.
How critical would an inspection be of like a structure on the property, like a shed that the owner's built?
Depends on your buyer. Like, it depends on, I mean, you have a hard time negotiating repairs to like a shed sometimes. But if they're, I always look at it like, okay, so I have a lot of value to my buyer, and as a seller, like pumping it up and there's this great shed or this great shop, if they're talking about how much value it has, but
Then-
it's not standing, it's not like a safe structure, it's not built sturdy, or it's got flaws with the paint or whatever, dry rot, then I think it's a bigger deal. So it depends on what it is. It's just like a little tool shed,
Yeah,
and it's probably what your buyers think is valuable.
Yeah.
These are problem areas too. So when the siding butts up to the roofing, there should be, flashing behind this. I don't know if there was. Yeah, it looks like there might be there. And that might be cut a little close. Like they probably want a little bit larger spacing between this and this. Do you see how it's starting
yeah.
to laminate right there? See, this is all water running over this and water this out.
With the air coming in.
Yeah.
going out.
Those, like, why don't you go back to that? So this is a perfect example of something that probably is a defect that affects the value of the property. I don't know if it affects the value of the property, but certainly makes the house drafty, right? I think you have a hard time getting a seller to do anything about that in this market. In other real estate, in other markets, you can get them to
You
do all
can ask for
kinds of stuff.
everything.
You ask for a lot of stuff. That's one of the things you probably wouldn't get anything for.
But those are important things to talk to your buyers about, like your inspection is gonna show you a lot of maintenance stuff that you might need to take care of, that it's gonna be an ongoing maintenance for you.
So I didn't actually show this house to my clients. I was out of town. I had another agent show it for me. I would have tried to write my clients to buy this house. I would have tried to get them out of it before we even got there. It just had a bad feeling to me about it. It was across from I-205, so the road noise is horrible. It's a big house for the money. But I would have tried to get them out of this. And I did actually. I later on I'll explain the conversation I had with them. So yeah, concrete up against the siding is always an issue. It should be below, it should never touch. And all the concrete should be sloping away from the siding so the water doesn't ever go up against it. This is another great little drawing.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
Handrails are important, if it's over 3 feet, the
Mhm.
deck, the height of the deck, you have to have a handrail.
Maybe even 18 inches.
Is it 18 inches?
Might be 18 inches, I don't know.
Nice.
That's like that'd be like a VA or an FHA thing. That's something that appraiser will look at. So PECs, it's part of regular appraisers don't really care, but a VA FHA appraiser will see that space and say, oh, you've got 3 steps, you need a handrail.
Yeah, someone's gonna fall off.
Yep.
And the handrails have to be, they can't be wide enough for a child to put their head in.
Yeah, the space between.
It's gotta be smaller than that.
Pavers, these can be an issue too, because, and this is great, probably even more important if you're having a listing, but you see pavers, like, they're heavy, they're usually set on the ground, obviously, you're not putting that on wood, it's set, ideally, it's
On
been
gravel.
gravelled and compacted and sanded, and it sits and it'll be fine, but a lot of times it's not, it gets a little wavy, or it starts sloping back to the house, and water going back towards the house, and crawl space, all that stuff.
There's the joist not connected to the deck nut.
Yeah.
connected to the house of the joist.
Yeah. One of the big things you'll see, I don't think it's on this one, but a deck, especially if it's hanging a certain amount, like a certain height above the ground and it's off the back of the house, it has to be a ledger, which is like a big piece of wood, big sturdy piece of wood, like a 2x6 or 2x8, I don't know what it is. And it's supposed to be bolted to the house, and then that's where all the hangers, like
What's missing?
like this right here, hanger would be fastened to. It's a big one, it always comes up.
Yep. Oh,
I don't know if it's a discrepancy in the code versus what the inspectors want to see, or I don't know how it looks by all the time, but it's really, really common. It may be that people are building their own decks too, and they just hang it to the house as opposed to hang it to the ledger.
they're not Googling it properly.
Not Googling it properly. You can see we spent a lot of time on the outside of the house with this one.
Yeah, that is a lot of pages.
Mm-hmm.
On page 21 already.
This is kind of a good, think about this, this is kind of a good drawing here. I sat through a thing with John's waterproofing one time, and he was trying to sell this like sealant system for your crawl space where you have like this membrane installed over the dirt to eliminate one radon. And his thing was the moisture coming up through the top of the house, because the houses are so secure and tight now. They don't vent because they don't have drafts, they also don't vent. But this was kind of interesting, this is, he said that the exponential growth of moisture through the levels of the house, and his numbers were kind of, I don't know if I believe his numbers, but this is a good example. So, you know, like you've got gravel here, and there's water, you've got gravel, and well, we don't really have gravel. We've got dirt underneath our house, we've got a vapor barrier that goes over that dirt. And then if there's moisture on top of that vapor barrier, as it climbs through the house, because when it evaporates, it rises, right? Because it's warmer air, it evaporates, and it goes into the warmth of the house, and it gets the moisture level in the air rises as it gets to the top of the house, and can really cause a lot of issues. So like having good venting up here and down here is super important to keep this area not exposed. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think what he was selling was a little fishy. It was, his numbers were skewed, but the principle of how it's done. Fences, all right, this is interesting. So this fence stuff and fences, it seems like half the houses you're ever gonna have clients buy, there's gonna be fences, issues with the fences. And I don't think I've ever gotten a repair on a fence. So
That's fine.
I don't know why, it just, people turn a blind eye to the fence. Well, part of the problem is you know whose fence it is, right? It sits on the property line. So is it your fence, is it your neighbor's fence? Usually it's probably been installed before anybody's ever lived in the house, and nobody knows who actually installed the fence the first time. But if it sits on the property line, it's kind of both your fences, right?
Yeah.
There. So is the neighbor gonna kick in on the fence? Probably not, especially if you're selling your house and you're like, bye neighbor, I wish you luck. We don't have to be neighborly anymore, and I'm not paying a dime for that fence, so. Into the crawl space. So this is that vapor barrier I was telling you, we were mentioning briefly. It doesn't cover this area. It should be dark in color if it's clear. If light gets through the crawl, like through the crawl space vents, it can create like weed growth underneath the house, which is gross, right? So it needs to be dark in color. And then the idea is it is all trenched to a low point drain. So like this corner is higher than that corner, and all the water flows into that one corner where the low point drain is, and all the water escapes.
So that's in a crawl space.
That's just in the crawl space, yeah.
Because I've seen, I went to house in like the Brooklyn neighborhood, like the Rosella, and I went in the basement.
Yeah.
And basement was super easy access, little stairs, and the basement looked like that.
And it had paper.
Half of it was cement, and then the
Mhm.
other half was like a dirt trench with
Totally.
with a tarp over it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, super common in
That's
old
vapor
houses
barrier.
like that. And other ones you'll see, there'll be like a retaining wall between those two,
Mhm.
and there'll be dirt over there, and this over here is crawl space on the east side of town, or older
Especially
parts of
for
town.
older.
Yeah, it was an older house. Would
Yeah.
you say like, that's like an alarming thing or no?
It's normal.
And it's pretty common. If you've had issues in the crawl space, like you're at your home inspection and things pop up in the crawl space, like as soon as you're done with the home inspection, get on the phone and call like, there's like 3 companies I probably never call, but really one is the one I would review, you guys should write this down, is Manuel Leon Construction.
Say that again.
Manuel Leon Construction. Everybody in the industry knows who they are. Almost everybody in the industry knows who they are. They're really well respected. They're honest, fair price, and super busy. Super. Manuel, and then Manuel, Leon, Leon, construction. And like I like one time was, I had this house over off of Wygant in Northeast Portland. It had old Portland cement, which is a combination of like pea gravel and cement. And over time, it crumbles and starts flaking off and it becomes an issue. Like your foundation shouldn't be crumbling, right? And so he had some really cool ideas on how to fix it, like building a shore wall to encapsulate it so that there was no crumbling anymore. But it was really cool to sit with this guy. He's older. I went to high school with his son. I'm not friends with him or anything like that, so that's not why I'm getting up the name. But I was listening to him talk. He's probably in his mid-60s, and he has so much knowledge about the history of construction as it pertains to foundations in Portland. It's really interesting. It's like when he passes, I don't know who's going to pick up. Hopefully, somebody knows all this stuff. I hope it continues because it's kind of interesting. But anyways, they're super busy. Terra Firma is a big company that does this sort of thing. They're super expensive. Ramjack is like a national company, super expensive. Like they're going to come out and they're going to build a job. I was at a home inspection one time, and I don't know if it's Terra Firma or Ramjack, but they had said that like if the height, they had like a laser level out, so they took a measurement of the height of the room over here, and then they went all the way to the other side of the house. It was a big house, like 3,000 square feet, and then they said, and then take a measurement of the height of the floor over there. And they said if there's like a variation of like an inch or half an inch or something like that, they suggested a foundation repair. And I was like, whoa. Like in this room, an inch is pronounced, right? But across the whole building, that's not that much, right? So like you can't tell me that like your inch, over a certain, anyways, they were trying to build a job out of it. And I was kind of worried about that.
I know you don't really see basements over here, but is there an area where would?
Yeah, so you go just on the other side of the bridge, so just get over into East Portland.
But nothing in the west, really.
Some, like Burlingame, there's a neighborhood that has a lot of basements. If it's an older home, like pre-1960, it might have a basement. Or if it's on hillside here, so we do a lot of daylight basements, where you enter from the high side of the land, the downside is off the back,
Walkout.
and so there'll be a basement underneath, daylight basement or walkout
You got
basement.
daylight or walkout. Daylight only goes to like the windows,
Okay.
and walkout, you actually can walk out at the bottom. So you can have like you can have like full basement at the front of the house. It can go towards a daylight, right? So you have a window that's big enough for someone to crawl out. And then at the very end of the house, it could be a walkout.
We built a lot of homes called split entry, where you walk up to the front of the house, you go upstairs, and then you're inside the house, and there's a stairway down and a stairway up.
That's a
And the
split
stairway
level.
down is usually built on a slab, and it's like half.
Those are typically daylights,
Yeah, that'd be called a daylight. Yeah.
unless it has a walkout.
Yeah.
I come from Montana, every house has a basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had someone who was asking, I want to stay over here, but I want a basement.
Good luck.
So you can search. You can do a search for daylight basement. We usually call
Yeah.
they usually call it daylights.
Yeah.
But because we don't have as many as you. But
Right.
but I would write. You can do a search for daylight basement. It's like when under the found there's an RMLS when you're putting in your search criteria. There's actually a spot for basement, and you can choose daylight.
Or you can add in the split level or the multi-levels. Multi-levels are when you go into the main floor and then in the middle of the house is an up and a down.
Yeah.
That's a multi-level.
Oh, yeah.
Although I found here you guys don't call them correctly, so.
We call them tri-levels here.
Yeah.
Or split. Some
And
people
there's
call them split.
also a 4.
Right. Some people call them split levels, tri-levels, and yeah, right. There's I've
Yeah.
seen some of their fours.
I've seen some where they do the main, where the living room, kitchen and dining, and then that upper with that partial upper, and they call all that the main, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, there's one little main.
Yeah. So let's just talk about cracks and foundations. So cracks in foundations like right here are super common, like, I don't know if you guys see that, you guys see that? So there's a seam right here, right, there's an edge, so the weight here is different than the weight here, and you would expect to see a crack like that, because it would shift a little bit like this, not a huge deal, right?
Stress cracks.
Yeah, just a little stretch crack. If you see them like this, that means the
Right.
foundation's shifting like this, that's really bad.
That's a run.
Yeah, or if it's like really sideways, or, but some minor cracking like that's not a huge deal.
Same thing if you see them like around windows and doorways,
Like, yeah.
especially in older homes, you see them in the windows, like at the corners of windows and doorways, that, it's just stress.
If you go inside a house, you'll see they call them stress fractures like that, it's like it's sheetrock, they're inevitable. They just, especially here where we have, it's dry and warm this time of year, but in 6 months it's gonna be wet and cold. And so wood
Ground
expands
shifts,
and
yeah.
contracts based on the moisture in the air. And so it just houses shift and move a little bit, and that causes those cracks.
Mhm.
Furnaces, yeah. So our furnace, the inspector said that the furnace on this house was probably need to be replaced because it's original, and they will call for anything that is old to be fixed, to be replaced. They'll say it's at the end of its useful life, even if it's working properly. Furnaces are kind of funny where, like, if the parts are still available, you can like just replace it over time, like part by part over time. It's like a shake roof. Have you ever seen shake roofs with a bunch of new shingles put on?
Yeah.
I always thought like you can just replace that roof incrementally over time, and just if you're
Yeah.
staying up on it, you'll just eventually replace all the shingles over a period of time. It's called maintenance. But there's a lot they can do to replace and repair these things to make them last for a long time. Like a well-running furnace will last a really, really, really long time. This inspector thought the heat exchanger was busted on this, like there was a hole in it. I don't even really know what the heat exchanger is. Do you know what the heat exchanger is? I don't really know how it works. I don't know the inner workings of the furnace very well. They had someone come out and they said it was fine. So,
I'm not an HVAC.
yeah. Remember, your home inspector is like general, like he's looking at things and making opinions based on his experience and what he sees and knows, but he's not a furnace tech, right? He's probably not that skilled he's not gonna tear it apart like he would. So like, they'll take the front off it and look at it, and then they take some readings and measurements and stuff, but when it comes to, like, they're not gonna break apart the engine and take a look inside, so it's not gonna give you that kind of depth. This had some funky plumbing, but it was all permitted, so we were fine with it.
Mhm.
Plumbing. Usually, when it comes to plumbing, unless it's like a faulty product or something that's being used, like it's you're not supposed to use like that plastic PVC piping on potable water. There's certain things that you aren't supposed to use, like the white PVC is not supposedly used for potable water. I think that's what it is. But stuff like that, you might be able to negotiate or repair, but typically, like if the house needs a repipe because it's got old galvanized plumbing and the water's not running great, that's a really difficult thing to get negotiated. I don't think I've ever negotiated that. Plumbing leaks, on the other hand, those are things that you typically get fixed.
Can I ask you a question about plumbing? So the house I'm renting right now, there's a bathtub on the first floor that doesn't get used very often. And the first time I turned it on, the water was very brown.
Right.
And now some of my grandkids take a bath, every couple 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's always a little bit off color,
Right.
even
Because it's
now.
not being used. Yeah.
And that's normal.
That's normal. Yeah.
And what is that, rust?
It could be rust, it could just be water sitting in that pipe for a while, not being used, it's kind of funky. And then when you turn
Sure,
it
it's
on.
brown.
I don't know what kind of plumbing you have, I don't know if it's galvanized or what,
House was built in
could be copper,
79.
could be copper, could be, I don't know. But I would, in my first thought, okay, oh yeah, that's galvanized, but I can't say for sure. Yeah, I can't say for sure. So what the home inspector will do is he'll run water, like they'll run the dishwasher, they'll run the sinks, they'll flush the toilets, they'll run the shower, he'll check the drains to make sure He'll fill up the bathtub, make sure it's holding water, he'll do all that stuff, kind of try to stress the system out a little bit. So I have a bunch of stuff running to give them an idea on the quality of it. They'll check the temperature that comes out on the hot, typically to make sure it's not too hot. They'll note if the pressure's low. Like I said, typically your repairs are limited to leaks.
I have a question. So the houses that have like a PGE box on,
Mhm.
do those just transfer with the CCNR or is there anything else?
What do you mean?
Like, they have these boxes, they're like green.
Uh-huh.
And-
That on the front of the property?
Yeah,
So those are part of the easement, the PGE owns that. Yeah, and they're just, would stay with property, it's not something the homeowner owns.
No.
PGE owns that box and they have an easement. If you were to, we're gonna do a preliminary title report thing.
Today,
Is it
we're
today?
doing the trios today,
Okay, and we're doing trios today, but another day we're doing preliminary title report.
next week.
And probably going to easements, I would imagine going to easements on that, so almost every residential lot probably has a utility easements across them. So for electricity, for
Yeah.
water, for cable.
Yep, all of them.
Yep.
All of them that are underground.
Or even above, right? It's above.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You can tell that just screams homeowner, that's just a DIY fix right there.
Lights out.
One of
How
the
many
big things
times do you
that,
see this? Right,
all the time.
right?
So especially in garages, like extension cords aren't,
They run an extension cord to run a light fixture in the
Yeah.
garage because they want more light.
right. And like sometimes, like, so for every garage door opener, it's supposed to have a dedicated outlet to it. You're not supposed to build it, you're not supposed to have an extension cord that goes between them. Otherwise, because they call those extension cords are fire hazards. One of the big things they're looking for in your garage, when they're gonna look at the electrical panel, it's probably where the electrical panel is in the garage. But they're looking for ways for fires to get from the garage into the house. So they wanna make sure there's fire doors, so like, you know how where you live now, probably if there's a door between the garage, that door is heavier than the doors between bedrooms. It's supposed to be like a fire door. Like crawl space access is supposed to have a fire door or a firewall built between the crawl space above the garage, the rest of the crawl space, that's the attic space. GFCIs, so I don't know when the code went into effect, it was probably in the 90s, maybe 80s, I don't know. But if an outlet is within 3 feet of a water source, then it's supposed to be a ground fault interrupter circuit, which is a GFCI, so if it gets wet, it turns off. And they can be linked together, so you may have one here, you have an outlet here with a button on it, that may be tied to this outlet, and that outlet, and that outlet, you don't know how they're all tied to, but it's code. So if it's an older home, you'll have a harder time getting the repair done to it if it's not there. A newer home, absolutely.
They're really easy to replace, so I think pretty much the only time we ever ask for it is if there's a major electrical that needs to be done. And then you can have them throw in the GFCIs. They're about $20 a pop. And I even replace them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to bring up. So a lot of times if you're asking for repairs and you're going through this, especially as the market kind of changes and repairs are more common, like I like to daisy chain my repairs. So it's like, hey, the electrician's coming out to replace the panel. Let's have him do this as well. Because it's because half the cost is having him come out in the first place. Like to fix it, he's gonna charge you, so this is a 15-minute job, right? He's gonna charge you $200 to do it because he doesn't just drive over your house for free. Right? He doesn't want $15 jobs, so he's gonna charge you $200 to make it worth his while. The electrician's while.
Like right now, if we're trying to close in 30 days and they can't come out.
Yeah.
I mean, we just bought a house and they just said, hey, we'll credit you.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing, but how do you really know the price and what something's really gonna cost? I mean, ours was like a clean inspection, so it wasn't big stuff, but something like that.
You can still get bids to
You
find
still
out.
get bids,
Assuming you can get a contract right.
Yeah.
but that's what I'm trying to think.
You can
like-
kind of like, sometimes you can get an estimate. Hey, we got like 3 GFCIs that
Yeah,
should
you
be
give me a
installed. How
ballpark.
much would you charge?
Okay, it's like a phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that might be the best you can get in the ballpark, right?
Okay.
You may not actually get someone to come out and give you a bid. It's great if you need the bids, but it's hard
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. But those are easy.
Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. So
Mandatory.
mandatory that they have a hush feature on the alarm, like, so you know that there's like a test feature and a hush feature, acid hush feature. They have to be with, if they're hardwired, if they're originally hardwired, then they all need to be hardwired. So if somebody replaces them and they place a non-hardwired unit next to a hardwired unit, then that's technically not qualifying. They're also supposed to be, if they're daisy chained, they all need to be daisy chained, which means they're tied together. They need to be on each floor and they need to be within 10 feet of every bedroom. So if you have a bedroom way over there and a bedroom over here, you need two. Because I'm about 15 feet away right here. Is it 10 feet or 15 feet?
I think it's 15.
I think it's 15. So I
Yeah.
might be okay here. I might almost be right. I think I'm about 17 feet away from my door, so I probably be two in this case. But that's for carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors. So one on each floor and within 15 feet of each bedroom.
There's a link on the purchase and sales agreement that takes you to the website, and you can actually download those PDFs so that you can provide those
Mhm.
as proof to your sellers
Mhm.
that they need to have that.
We were talking about this yesterday on the purchase agreement. There's a line, I think it's a section 18 maybe off the top of my head, where it talks about, or 19, where it talks about the seller will have the smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors up to date within the boilerplate is 15 business days. The problem with that is your home inspection is usually right now 7, 8, 9, 10 business days. You can have the appraiser out there on the 12th business day, and he's gonna be the one who's gonna look at those as well, the inspector. He's gonna look at those and go, hey, these aren't done. You're gonna pay me $200 to come back out and make sure that they're in place before I'll sign off on this closing. And so I always limit that time to 10 business days, or I mirror it with your inspection contingency. So if your inspection period is 10 days, do that at 10 days. If it's 8 business days, and do 8 business days, whatever. So make sure that it gets done. In the listing agreement, it's actually, if it's in the RMLS, and they signed an RMLS listing agreement, the sellers actually already agreed to have that done by the time the property gets to market. But
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Well, and then on the appraisal, the appraiser is always gonna call it.
Yep.
And if you're using Keller Mortgage, that appraiser is done day one. They hire the appraisal and get it sent out. So it can be done before the inspection is done, right? So you really wanna make sure that you're watching those.
Mhm.
Let the agent on the other side know
Mhm.
if it's not in there, we need it in there now.
In the purchase agreement, it says in the financial section that you will order the appraisal the day of the expiration of the inspection period. So know that. But make sure your lender knows that. Lenders don't know that, and so, or the buyer certainly doesn't know that. So you need to make sure that you're triggering everybody, saying, hey, we just cleared the inspection, get that appraisal order, unless it's Keller Mortgage and they've already.
They just automatically do it. Which honestly, listing agents like the appraisal done right away. They think that that's gonna get your buyer to stay, because usually they pay that out front.
Mhm.
But with Keller Mortgage will eat that if the deal dies, and the buyer doesn't have to pay for that up front. So for them, it's no big deal, and the listing agent will be like, yeah, you bet, go ahead and go do that appraisal, because they want that done.
So your mortgage broker is filling out in the paperwork who the appraiser is gonna call to set the appointment for the appraisal. The thing is, they never read that part. They always just call the listing agent, because the listing agent's the one who has access to the house. So as a listing agent, I would get that phone call while the inspection period was still going. I'd be like, yeah, come on over, or whatever, right? And then I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls from angry buyer's agents, like, why'd you let them come? We're not done with the inspection period yet. I'm like,
Hey,
it's not my fault.
they scheduled it.
Manage your people. Like, it's fine. They called me and wanted to get in. I don't know any different. I just let them in. In my mind, I'm thinking, let's get them spending money on the appraisal. Plus, I want it done soon. I want it done sooner, so if there's an issue, we can hit it before we've been off the market for 30 days, right? You wanna get that done as quick as possible as a listing agent.
And that's actually a really big bonus at the times like when recently we've had with appraisals, getting an appraiser out there was 3-4 weeks out, right? Right now, I don't know where it's at.
It's not the.
But, so that's an additional bonus as to helping your buyer get the deal, right?
Mhm.
That the appraisal's gonna be.
Which is
ordered
funny,
right
because in
away.
like 16 and 17, we had a ton of delays because of appraisals taking
Yeah.
too long. And maybe there's more appraisal waivers being issued, I don't know, but transaction numbers are up since then. So we're doing, was it 11% more sales this year than we did at the same time in 2017, which was still on market. And we were having long delays then, but we're not having those same delays now, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
We have like 9 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And we didn't even get to the.
Ah, gosh, I hate to go on, don't I? Ah, okay,
You brought
let's
us
keep
a
going.
59-page
I know,
inspection report.
And this is the summer. More flitter photos, let's keep going. Attic vents, so like if this was down lower, there would need to be a well installed here, so the water would pour in.
Well, and also making sure that these are closed up, because we found one of ours at our house was, there was a gap where the dryer vent was, and we had mice and rats in our crawl space, and then they went into our garage.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
There should be some sort of screen behind them. Typically, you want those open all year long, but with a screen blocking them. You only close them like on the wettest days or the coldest days. That's what your home inspector will
Yeah,
do.
it was the one where the dryer vent came out that they had
Yeah.
pushed it and got just a tiny little space, so.
Mhm. Doesn't take much.
No, it doesn't.
Let's just kill this one. Let's go to the sewer
We're
scope
done?
real quick. Yeah, let's just go to the sewer scope.
Look at that, we were done anyways. Sewer scope.
Did they buy the tub yet?
We just negotiated repairs. So we got $5,000 credit in repairs. We asked for, there's 2 breaks in the sewer line, which are there's 2 roof balls in the sewer line, which we asked to get repaired. We asked for a new roof, which we never really thought we were gonna get, but the owner, my buyer is a roofer, so figures he can fix that himself. And the other issue was we asked for a new furnace and they ended up servicing the furnace. So I feel good about it. And the fact that we got them $5,000 in this market, it's a win. Like, that's a big deal. Like, there's not, like I said, I review a lot of the paperwork that goes through here. We don't see a lot of things coming. I tried to get them not to buy this house. So I said to them, hey, when they kind of pushed back on our repairs, I just said, hey, one, you guys need to consider how bad you want this house. I like the size of it, I like the lot, I don't like the proximity to 205, and I don't like the condition. And so they decided to move forward because they're having a hard time finding a house. They'll accept things they wouldn't accept otherwise, because the market is the way it is. But in a normal market, I don't think we would put about this.
How much is servicing the furnace usually?
I think they end up paying like $300 for service it, but depends on what it needs.
Right,
Yeah.
but just in general.
Yeah, I mean, then probably at some point you get to a breaking point where like this is bad money to spend on it. That they didn't seem to think that's where it was, but it wasn't our furnace guy who did it. I don't know. I don't love it. I'm not too thrilled with the sale, but it is what it is. Like I tried talking about it a little bit.
So when they come back and go, I told you.
Yeah. All right, let's just click on that link really fast. Let's just look through. Just so you guys can get an idea of what a sewer scope looks like.
Then we go forward a little bit.
Sure. It'd be cool to play this at like 1.5 speed or something. Like on Google you can do that. Like my daughter, like at school, like has her things done.
So they have to have water running to push it down
Yeah.
through.
So they'll flush toilets or they'll run water from some spot in the house, and they're gonna shove a camera into the sewer line. And so on the way down, you have water running, and on the way back, usually you have the water turned off. And what they're looking for is breaks in the line, pooling water. So that means they call that a belly. So the line goes like this, but there's a belly that goes like this, and they say like more than like half an inch of water is what requires a repair to the sewer line. I don't believe that. I've got bellies at least that much on my line, but because there's like gravity's involved, right? I mean, like it's tough to Yeah. So don't shake the inspector's hand after he does the sewer scope, all right?
This reminds me of what I'm getting next Wednesday.
Oh, no.
So what happens when you get old?
So what, he came up against something here, didn't he?
I think it was a root intrusion.
Yeah, so what happens is there's just a little break in the line. Roots will look like they're looking for raw water, right? So there's a source of water there. They'll go, or whatever it is. And they find their way in, they build roots and they start to expand and grow into the sewer line. And over time, that root will get, that ball will get big enough that the waste won't flush, and then it'll stop, and then it backs up, and that's when it becomes an issue.
You fix that.
So what they'll do is they'll dig up the area, and they'll replace that part of line. And the first route on this one is really interesting. So when they build the development, they first stub all the lines in. They don't have to go all the way to where the house is, because they don't know where they're gonna build the house out to. So they'll stub it out, and there'll be like a riser on it. And this first root intrusion was at the riser. So what they'll probably do is just dig that up and like seal the riser better, and it should be fine. If you walk around the outside of a house and you see like a black top, like little pipe coming up with a square little plastic hex like bolt on it, that's where the sewer line access is. So it goes out to the street, depending on, in this case, it went out the street, some of them go out the back, this one went out the street, which is most common. Depending on the jurisdiction, the homeowner is either responsible for the space from the house to their end of the property line, which is the curb, or all the way to what they call the city lateral, which where the big line is. And it's a city lateral, it sucks, because if there's a break between in the cement, you have to pay to cut through the road. You have to pay for a road crew to stop traffic. It's really expensive. You're talking about like there's two spots on this that are bad. It's going to cost about $5,000 to fix. $4,200, I think is what we had. I did $4,295 was a bid we had. If it had been in the street, it would have been $15,000.
And if it's an HOA, what attached townhouse?
If it's an HOA, if it's a townhome, that sewer line is your responsibility because you own the land. If it's a condo, it's likely the
They show
HOA
it,
association.
yeah.
HOA association.
But there are other owners involved with.
So that would be called a party line, which are illegal. So there are party
Yeah.
lines in like east side of
Yeah,
town.
where they join
They're
up
old.
together and then go out.
They're super old and
Yeah.
they're trying, the cities, like you can't repair a party line, you have to do a new one.
Yep.
Because the cities don't want two people sharing a sewer line. So if there's, what's that?
When was the last time those were built?
Oh, you're right.
A long time ago. I mean, well, I don't know. I had one, my house was built in the '60s over in South Portland with the party line. But yeah, you have to, I think you might be able to jet it out, and clean it out, which is another option where they just run a bunch of water through it really quick, to break anything apart. That's a Band-Aid, but
The sewer access point, if you can't find that, then they have a full toilet.
so there's a couple options. One's to pull a toilet, and the problem is those cameras can only make a couple turns. So they also can go through those roof vents I was talking about. But the camera, then depending on how long the run is, so that they call the run is the area from where you're able to access to the end of the line. So if it's a long run, they have to use a bigger camera, like a bigger gauge camera, to have enough force to shove it through, because it'll start to bend eventually, because the weight of it just becomes too much. So a smaller camera won't make that long run, and if it has to make a bunch of bends, then it makes it harder to push and starts cranking up, it starts bending as opposed to being pushed. So what you can do is go into the crawl space and install a line there, or dig up a spot and install a line. It's actually not that super expensive to install like a small little riser if you have exposed pipe, it's not that expensive to do. It's like $50, or at least it was like $50 a few years ago. Probably not. But it's worth it, because I'd say about half of your sewer lines have issues.
How do we find out, responsibility is the road or the?
Call the city, figure out what the the jurisdiction department is, call them and they'll tell you. Like Washington County, you'll send them a copy of the video, and they'll look at it, and they'll say, oh, that's not on our line, or that is on our line, or it's right there, yeah, we'll fix that, don't worry about it. We'll fix it someday. Would be the answer.
So half is a lot.
Yeah, I have like 3, 4, like a third to half, it's a lot, yeah.
That is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah, always have a sewer scope done, I always have a sewer scope done.
Partially because there's no gray area, either the tiniest little things are for sale, so.
We have an agent buying a house that was built 18 months ago, and the sewer line is full of construction. So we gotta try it out to see what the rest of the line looks like.
I had one that, they didn't want to do an inspection on a new construction, because why do I need an inspection, right? I have a home warranty. And I always do an inspection. In Montana, again, basements, the sewer caps, when they're building, they cap it, the drain, and they left it on there. And so when they moved in, if they hadn't had the inspection for that to be found, guess it was just in the basement of the house. So anytime they use the toilet and the water, showers, all that, it wasn't going past that point because it was to stop the debris from going down into the drain, right? So all of that would have came back in and flooded the brand new basement, which in Montana, they're fully finished.
Gross.
So inspection. The other things on that one they found was the disposal was never actually connected. That switch was there, but it wasn't connected. And also the dishwasher wasn't piped and connected.
I always, on a new construction, would always have a home inspection.
Always, doesn't matter.
Because you're
Unless
relying
not.
on the city guy to come through and say everything's okay, and he can get distracted, there's a million reasons why. And then and the builder should want it because it's like heads off any future claims, like future warranty issues they can handle now as opposed to once you're all moved in. When the crew's still on site, possibly makes it cheaper. Anyways, let's stop here.
Yeah, we have to stop here. We were supposed to go over just a little bit of this and then talk about the inspections and how you're supposed to write them and stuff.
We will get to that.
We'll hit that. Next week is like closing week on Monday, but we can probably,
I think we picked that
we
in
can
there.
still fit it in
Yeah.
and finish, talk about like what type of things to put on that, because we're also gonna hit, instead of asking for repairs, like asking for credits and how to do it and what
How to
to,
manage
what to
it.
write it. So we'll kind of cram that all into closing week, because closing week can be pretty quick.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to take a quick, like 5-minute break.